My name's Jack Dearden, covered Latics for many years and hopefully here to share some terrific memories with you.
And, I'm Stuart Pyke. It's nearly 30 years ago since those fantastic glory days. I'll be sharing memories too down Sheepfoot Lane.
Redfearn comes up. It's there! It's there! Oldham have won, surely!
Hi, I'm Bob Young, and I had the pleasure of covering Oldham Athletic for the Oldham Evening Chronicle for 13 years, and during the glory years that we all remember so fondly.
And the referee has blown the whistle! Celebration time! Oldham Athletic have won the second division title!
Welcome to my guests, Stuart Pyke, Bob Young and Jack Dearden. Stuart Pyke, Stuart, your days at Boundary Park, your 5 years at Boundary Park.
Well, scratching a living, I think, is the way to describe it, of course. And I can see Bob and Jack laughing there. They know me well. Hey, listen, Roy, the only thing I can say is that I've been lucky to do this job since I was 18, 19 years of age. So nearly 40 years being a journalist and commentator and, you know, just all round sports mad. And all the things that I've done, I've been lucky enough to go around the world several times. I still have those 5 years covering Oldham as the best years of my life. I mean, who would have thought it when I turned up on a Friday night for the very first time?
Let you in?
Well, yeah, well, they did. They did. You were making the cups of tea. But I remember it never nearly didn't even get off the ground. I think it was Leighton Orient on a Friday night in front of about 1,800 people, and Oldham lost.
And you went under the Chaddy Road End stand and said,
I did.
"What do you think about the manager?"
I know.
I remember that as well.
Well, what happened was that my boss at Piccadilly Radio said, "Go and vox pop the fans." So, of course, being, you know, the new boy and everything, I thought, well, I'll do as I'm told. So I did. And a lot of them at that stage were saying, well, get rid of this Joe Royle, he's useless. So of course, this went out and I got a phone call. I got a phone call at home from the manager. The manager rang me at home and demanded my presence on the Monday morning at 9 o'clock. And that was Joe. If he had a beef with you, he'd let you know. But once that was done and dusted, you know, it was forgotten. And it went the other way as well. I mean, Bob and Jack will know, you know. I think Joe respected you if you argued back and put your point of view. I think the whole of the club was built on that. You know, in the Joe Royle years, it was all about everybody being together, and it became a family. And I think the guys would agree with me.
I can always remember press conferences after that, Stuart, when Ince, Paul Ince, used to be sat there in a cloud of smoke. Oh no, sorry, not when Joe was there, but no smoke in those days. But he sat there, and when you walked in the room, he said, "Been under the Chaddy Road End stand again, have you, Pyke?" He was just
Absolutely.
Mind Joe Royle about that every time you walk through the door.
I know, but Bob and Jack will know that was Joe. You know. And,
yes, of course it was. Yeah, so it was.
And we were lucky, Stuart, that Oldham let us go on the coach and it got you closer to the players and that sort of thing. But woe betide you if you did fall out with Joe. As you say, it was a temporary thing, but he once fell out with me, not about something I'd written, but about some readers' letters, over which I have no control. And they appeared in the paper, and I got the phone call, and he said, "That's it, you're barred. You're barred from the team bus, and you're barred from the ground." I thought, all right.
Yeah,
the rest of that week, I started ringing around people at the club, various people, including Roy, and I got more stories in the paper that week than Soft Mick. So Joe rang me on the Friday and said, "Young, come in the office this morning. Let's sort this out." So we sat down, had a chat. I put my point of view, he put his point of view, shook hands, friends ever since. And that was it. You know, it's done with.
Well,
It
I
was.
was talking to Tony Bugby about the team bus last night, who's come up with some very interesting information, by the way, as Bugby would do. And he told me last night the same story about the team bus and the letters to the editor, and that's why you stopped going on the team bus.
Yeah.
On the subject of Joe, he once said to me, I used to do the Latics club call. There's a great story. I started doing that as well, but ended up, like Stuart said, I've been in broadcasting now for over 30 years. It was round about the time, Bob and Stuart, they sold Andy Gorham, didn't they? Was it to Hibs or somewhere like that?
Hibernian,
350,000,
yeah. Well, pretty much everybody knew about it, and we used to have an office. The club call office used to be underneath where the old Ford stand, which has obviously been revamped now. And we were getting faxes regularly from the Scottish Daily Mail, and it was all the back page lead and everything. So I used it, and I can't remember the name of the goalkeeper he brought in, but I think his nickname was Lucky. His house kept getting flooded and stuff like that.
Andy Gorton.
And
then he brought John Keeley in.
Oh yeah, I think it was John Keeley.
From Brighton.
And Joe said, just like you two guys have referred to, Joe said, you've cost this club something like £250,000. I said, why? He said, because you've said that we're selling Andy Gorham for £1 million to Hibs. And John Keeley, you're right. Did he join from Brighton? I can't remember where he joined from now.
Yeah.
And he did have some bad luck, by the way. I do remember his house getting flooded frequently. But anyway, and Joe said, but after the following day when he'd said that, it was half in jest, I must admit. So just because everybody knows now, or everybody's assuming, we've got £1 million for Andy Gorham. So consequently, we're having now to pay more because everybody knows. So they've asked for another 40 grand more for John Keeley or something like that. But absolutely brilliant. The stories on the bus are legendary. And let me get this in straight away. So lucky. As we all are, I think, to be fair, apart from the fact there's lots of ins and outs, lots of tales. You can't do the job. I think we need to establish that. What we do without occasionally going toe-to-toe with certain people, and probably an awful lot of people. But I've got nothing but respect for him, I must admit. He took me all over the world, Florida, Tenerife, Magaluf several times, end-of-season trip, an early-season trip to the Isle of Man, Seychelles. Great story about that as well. Went to the Seychelles. Joe said, why don't you come? I said, I can't afford it. Went to see Stotty. God bless him, by the way. And let's just pay a quick respect to Big Gordon as well, because Stotty was the most successful chairman in the history of the club. So I went to see, he said, we'll go and see Stotty. So Stotty, being Stotty, said, of course you can go, Jack, but you'll have to pay for it yourself. So I ended up paying, I think it was like £25 a month for about 15 years or whatever the cost was. I'll tell you something, it's the best money that I've ever spent in the whole of my life. And as I said, we went to Florida, Clearwater, one of the best days of my whole life. We went fishing. This is when Rod Adams was on the board. Joe was there, Sauce, Ronnie. We went on the days fishing. I'll tweet a picture of it. I'll put it on social media when I get a chance. And we went on a boat with a guy, I always remember his name, called Captain Al, and you didn't want to cross him. You know what I mean? And I've never fished before or since. Ended up catching this massive big kingfish right in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean or wherever we were at the time. Great tales. Just the memories that are just fond. There's a fondness, isn't there? And I think there was. And we were so lucky as well to be part of that era, which has become known as the Pinch Me years. We've just been so lucky and fortunate to be a part of that. And like you, Bob, I've lived pretty much in Oldham most of my life. I still live not far away from Boundary Park now, and it's just great to look back. And unfortunately, I don't ever see it being repeated because football changed, life's changed, everything.
It's all changed. I'll tell you what, Jack, you were brave going out with Ian Liversidge and Ronnie Evans. When I did that, we stayed overnight at Portsmouth, and those two crackpots went out in a nightclub in Portsmouth.
Bob, I was there.
And you went with them, yeah.
I was
tucked up in bed, but he lied. And those two were out winding up sailors, weren't they?
Yeah.
Come home on leave.
And I was ill. I was very, very ill, and how I managed to cover the game the next day, I think only because I was young. A couple of years later, then I just wouldn't have been able to do it.
No.
But thinking about the team coach is that I, to this day, can you imagine a Premier League club now taking their local journalists on the team bus to Oldham, the away game? It would never happen. That's why Oldham was such a big family and everybody was like all in together. But they used to say, Joe used to
at the end of the season as well, Pikey, that Joe was so brilliant with us that he took us all out for a meal in a Chinese restaurant. In Middleton and wives in Middleton, and picked up the bill for all the meal and the taxis and everything. He was brilliant.
He sent everybody home in taxis, didn't he?
He did. But on the team bus, he always used to say to me when we fell out, he said, "Right," I told you, ring me at home and say, "Right, I'll see you tomorrow at the windmill, 1 o'clock. Don't be late." And he said, "We're only letting you on because you're absolutely bloody useless at cards, so we take your money every week." But I got wise to that, and when I started taking their money, the card games became less and less and less. But that was just the fun of it, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, just a very quick story because I'm sure there's many more. But on the subject of the team bus, I remember on one occasion over the Christmas period, Latics were playing at West Ham. This was during the Premier League days, and we went. It might have been I think it was Boxing Day, 11 o'clock.
Oh, yes.
11 o'clock Boxing Day morning kickoff at what was then Upton Park. So on the team bus, I used to go on the team bus, and we left on Christmas Day.
I remember, Jack. They let us have the day, didn't they? They picked us up about 4 o'clock.
That's right, yes. That's
Christmas Day.
Spot on. But the following day, now bear in mind, it's a Boxing Day morning, 11 o'clock kickoff. We've travelled the following day. It's the best trip even now that I've ever had to London. Just sailed through Christmas Day, no traffic, stayed overnight. And we didn't get to Upton Park until about 10 past 11 or something like that, or 10 to 11 for an 11:30 kickoff or whatever time it was. And he ended up, we had to, what was it, Roy? What was the driver called from Lost Orleans? Was it Derek?
Derek.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know if it was Derek, but the driver got lost completely. So Joe stopped the bus, got a couple of West Ham fans actually on the team bus, and said, "Take us to the ground in a plastic route." That's a true story. And he ended up dashing to get the team sheets to prevent a fine. I think they just got told off for a warning or something. So even though we travelled the day before, I think it was 11:30 Boxing Day morning kickoff, got there about 10 to 11, just in time to get the team sheets in. And I think they got beat, and no wonder. But that's just an illustration of. But it was just fantastic. Those days.
Jack, I've been talking to Joe this morning, and he asked me to ask you about going out for a meal with him, and mention the word chilies. Is that right?
Yeah, Tenerife. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was out. This is what, as I said, I was so fortunate. It took me all around the world. I think we went to Tenerife twice. I think it was me, Joe, probably Billy Ermson at the time, and maybe somebody else. I can't just remember it, but there were some great trippers as well. And we went out for a meal. And I've had a bit of a thyroid problem, and probably still do to a certain extent. But anyway, I don't know why even now, but I've got this capacity to eating certain foods where I do sweat quite a lot. And that's what I put it down to. But unbeknownst to me, as we're talking and having a glass of wine, whatever we're talking, and the soup came, whatever it was, Joe is pouring and putting all these chilies in my soup from where the condiments, you know what I mean, the salt, pepper, anything else you want. And unbeknownst, and I'm sweating like a stuck pig, I've got to be honest with you. Yeah, I do remember that, Roy. That is an absolute. I'm so glad you reminded me about that.
He told me that at 2 minutes to 11. I said, "I'll have to go now. I'm zooming at 11 o'clock."
Yeah. Anyway.
Said, right.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I can't. I've got so much respect for him, both, you know, what he achieved in football, what he achieved for the Latics, and off the field as well. And that, yeah, I'm so glad you reminded me about that. Well, I don't think I've sweated as much since.
I'll tell you.
It was filling my soup with chilies, spoonfuls of chilies, and I'm thinking, blimey, what's up with this? And everybody was saying, "You're sweating a bit, Jack." And I didn't know any of this was going on. I'm completely, unbeknownst to me. And then they're all at it then, of course, putting the chili in my soup. Oh, great story, Joe.
Well, there you go.
Great memory.
Now, I'll tell you why I rang Joe this morning. I had to ask him a question to see whether he could answer it. I know Youngie won't be able to answer it.
Thanks, Roy. Vote of confidence.
No, it's the strangest question I've ever heard, but I've got very close to it. It's from Ben Sheridan. Latics played a Friday night game versus Crystal Palace around 1988. Dennis Irwin fired the hardest shot I have ever seen against the crossbar. In my mind's eye, it was to near the halfway line, and over time it keeps creeping backwards. Problem is, I have never seen it since to correct my poor memory. Do Stuart, Bob, or Jack remember this shot, and can they give a more accurate estimate of how far out Dennis was when he fired the shot?
Right, well, I'm out with this. If it's 1988, I didn't. I didn't start doing.
Parky might be out of it with it being a Friday night game as well.
I remember the game. Roy. But I
have a feeling he was about halfway.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what I did last night.
Bob's right. But
I think he was about halfway.
Yeah, well, Joe thought it must have been for it to stick in his mind.
Yeah.
What I did do last night, I rang Tony Bugby and I asked him the question. Now, he wasn't at that game. I said, you was number 2 in those days to Bob Young, but he'd go anywhere for a football match, Tony, wouldn't he? So I thought he'd be there on a Friday night. But he said, no, I wasn't at that game. Went away, got his book. It was, and this is for you, Ben, it was on the 29th of January 1988. Oldham 1, Palace 0, and the goal scorer for Oldham was Tommy Wright.
Right.
We Tommy.
I rang Joe and asked him, he says, give us a break. Can't handle that. But I'll tell you what, I'll try and find out for you, Ben, before this goes out on Saturday afternoon.
Sorry, Ben, I'm out of that one. That was just before my time, probably about 12 months before. But great, absolutely fantastic memories. Really, real great memories as well.
Yeah, there certainly was. And one more question. We'll drop that in a little bit later on. Shall we move on to Mr. Young now? I've got plenty of material on Mr. Young.
Oh dear, this sounds ominous.
13 years at Latics for the Cron.
Yep.
Yeah. 2 games in the Premier League, which was because you left to become
sports editor.
Sports editor at the Oldham Chronicle, didn't you? The day after, more or less, we all went out to Wings on the Friday night for the Chinese with Joe, with our wives, if you remember rightly. That's right. I know he was around for the Frizzle years a little bit before, and there were some great times there, wasn't there, Bob?
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
I mean, it weren't just, we did have some good times previous to that, the Joe Royle years.
Yeah, well, Frizz was a great character as well. Yeah. Great character, and very similar to Joe in that I remember I was only a fairly young lad at the time, of course, and I'd written something about Latics losing at home or something like that, and Frizz took exception. So I went down, used to go and see him every day, wandered down to the ground, and in the corridor near the dressing rooms, he got me by the throat and pinned me up against the wall. He was effing and jeffing, and I mean effing and jeffing in his thick Scottish accent. I couldn't understand most of it, but I gathered he wasn't very pleased with me. So after letting rip at me like that, he let go and just said, "Youngie, come in the office." And we went in the office, and this is about 10:30 in the morning, and he opened a bottle of scotch and said, "Here, and it's all sorted." And we never fell out again.
No, well, brilliant. I remember, Jimmy Frizz did a great job, by the way, prior to Joe. And I think Jimmy Frizz, Roy, played in the same team. Bill had a couple of years playing for Latics. In fact, it was his first professional club. And he played in the same team at that time. I know we're sort of getting off.
No, you're not, because there's not many people know about, the younger fans don't know that you were related to cousin to Billy Dearden.
Billy Dearden, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Went to Sheffield United.
Yeah, exactly. I had great 7 seasons at Sheffield United. Played in that game. In fact, that particular season, and they're always showing this goal on the BBC, and it's a particular, it used to be in the start of the match of the day where George Best, a quick story about our Bill, which told me, Sheffield United lost at Old Trafford 2-0. I think they'd gone 11 games unbeaten. Just that, we're talking about the old First Division here. So they'd gone up from the Second Division the previous year. This was the days of Tony Curry, Alan Woodward, Trevor Hockey, Eddie Colloon, and all those characters, Len Badger. And Bestie got the ball on the halfway line, and he's weaved his way to the edge of the Sheffield United penalty area, zigzagged past everybody. I think it was Hodgkinson was in goal at the time for Sheffield United. And he's just clipped it into the far corner, and there's like a white picket fence all around the stadium at Old Trafford at the time. They're forever showing it was a gorgeous day. And I used to, and Bill always used to tell me that he had the best possible view of that goal. He was at Old Trafford. He had the best view of it was a great goal, by the way.
It was.
United won 2-0. I mean, lots of people can recall it, I'm sure. But he always said to me, Bill, he said, I had the best possible view of that goal. I was stood on the halfway line with my hand on my hips, my hands on my hips, watching Bestie work his magic. And I'm pretty sure that was the first time. I think on that particular season, I think it was the first game Sheffield United had lost or something like that. But they had a good side then. But yeah, he said he had a great view of the goal, I must admit. Yeah.
Really. Talking about Frizz, though, I mean, people perhaps don't realise, but he laid the foundations, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Of course.
I mean,
yeah.
Bob will know more about this than. I mean, Joe came in and he was just a masterful manager, a masterful man manager, and it took him a while. Yeah, it did. But I mean, but you'll be able to tell us, Bob, that Frizz really did put down some stones, didn't he, for the future?
Yeah, I mean, they weren't so far off. I think they finished 7th or 8th the year he got the boot. And I got banned from the club for a while because I spoke up for him at the Industrial Tribunal, and Harry Wilde wasn't best pleased about that with myself and Paul Head. So, and that's a lost evening when the hearing found in favour of Frizz, and he got 20-odd grand or something. He said, "Right, come on, out to the pub." Yeah. I got home eventually, but but Frizz had laid good foundations, but it was tough for Joe to start with because the club didn't have a lot of money. His first job was to sell Paul Fuchs to Derby, for about 120 grand, I think, and they let him buy Tony Henry for 21,000 from Bolton. But the first couple of years were really tough for him. And talking about, Pikey saying about that Leighton Orient game with next to nobody there and they lost at home and that sort of thing. That may have been the night, I can't remember exactly, but he was talking about packing it in.
Yeah.
He was really down in the dumps and talking about
yes, he was.
But the great beauty was the board had enough wit to let him bring in Willie Donachie. And Willie made such a great difference. Those two together were brilliant.
You know something, Bob? That particular night, his wife came looking for him, and the ground was shut up. We was all up in the press room, and we didn't leave till about 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
trying to cheer him up and persuade him to stay.
Yeah,
we certainly did.
He was sat in the office on his own in the dark, wasn't he?
Bobby, I know we're talking about a different era now, guys. I understand that, but I'm not entirely sure. You're absolutely right, because when Joe first came in and was appointed, Latics were going nowhere at that time, about 5th bottom Second Division team, and absolutely no prospect of going into the First Division. Obviously, that developed into the Premier League as we now know it. I've often wondered, and Frizz did a great job. There's no question about that. People like Billy Ernson as well, who was there when Frizz was there as well. Yeah. And then Willie coming in. It's all fundamental. They all played a great part. I'm sure Joe would say that. I know you couldn't do it now, but even in them days, at that time, in those days, I just wonder if they kind of got enough credit for achieving what they did. The way that Joe went round. You talked about some of the selling foots to Derby County at the time. But he had his eye for a player, didn't he? He nicked players, didn't he? Paul Warner, still Barrett from.
He was great.
Unbelievable.
He was great at going round, and it's changed now. You couldn't do it now.
You can't do that. No, you can't.
There were reserve players on not a lot of money, fringe of the first team, not getting games, and he went round. City, Leeds was such a brilliant hunting ground for him.
Yeah.
Imagine getting Dennis Irwin for nothing.
Beyond belief.
You know, Bob, he was telling me that.
But I tell you what, one fella never gets mentioned, deserves a lot of credit, and that was the chief scout, Jim Cassell.
Jim Cassell, yeah.
Fantastic job leader.
Yeah. Jim was an absolute. Do you know what? One of the nicest guys, and I think even in this dog eat dog world, pardon the phrase, Poppy, but even these tough times in the Premier League, and with the scouting system they have, and the millions of pounds that are available, and the scouting teams, it was just Jim.
Yeah,
and
there was
better. Yeah, there was no one better. And Joe took him to Man City, and he continued picking up people and spotting people for nothing. He was a genius.
Yeah, he was. He got a good bloke, an all-round good bloke as well, Jim. Really nice fella.
They're certainly missing him now.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, Bob, you surprised me with your memory of all the little bits. I'm going to give you a clue to the next question. Boxing Day.
I'm going.
Cast your mind back to 1979.
Yep, Boxing Day.
What was special about that trip?
It was Cambridge away.
Yeah.
I haven't heard this one. I'm really looking forward.
No, it's a cracker, this one.
Do you want me to tell you the full tale?
Yeah, go on. Well, if you don't, I will.
Right. So in those early days of me covering Latics, I'd like to go on the supporters' coaches now and again and chat with fans and get the vibe for how they were thinking things were going. So we set off at 7 o'clock from Boundary Park to go to Cambridge.
Boxing Day.
On the Boxing Day. And we'd gone about 10 yards when we set off. And the bar opened on the back seat. They had barrels of beer at the back of the coach. So I thought it'd be sociable to join in at Christmas, and had one or two of those.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Or 4. And we get to Cambridge, and it's the pubs are open. But not to Latics fans. So we're wandering around trying to find somewhere to go, because it was really early on. It was only about 11 o'clock for a 3 o'clock kickoff. So I peered through this pub window and see Jonathan Hurst, who was the son of the former Oldham Chronicle editor. And it was at Cambridge University. And he peered back and he recognised me and came to the door, and we exchanged pleasantries. And I said, "Can I bring this 30-odd fans in?" "Yeah, no problem," said the landlord. In we went, had a few more scoops. So by the time we get to the ground, and I'm doing some freelance commentary for Radio Manchester.
Yeah, well said, Bob.
I was feeling wonderful. And we get in the ground, and Russell, the local lad who did my sort of job at Cambridge, and one other fella in the press box, and Russell said, "Youngie, need you to help me out." He said, "This club give you nothing." He said, "But it's Christmas, and there's a crate of beers here, a crate of a dozen beers. We can't leave them." Right.
We'll have to drink them.
So we have a few more. And when the game kicked off, and it was an absolute thriller. Ended up 3 apiece. But I didn't think the commentary was too bad for Radio Manchester.
I thought the hiccups were very good.
Apart from the hiccups, saying, "I think it's 2 apiece, but it's all happening so fast. I hope you're all as full of the Christmas spirit as I am." Needless to say, Radio Manchester didn't use me again.
Bob, one more question, and seeing you was inebriated, who was the goal scorers that day?
I think Roger Wilde scored twice.
Wrong.
No.
Roger would be pleased, wouldn't he? But
yeah.
Yeah.
In that case,
Well,
America.
I got it off the memory man out of his book. Tony Bugby last night came back with the date of 1979 and when he got Jim Steele, Vic Hallam and Simon Stainrod.
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 And my pal
play.
Jim Steele. I could tell tales about Jim Steele and Gary Hooligan.
Actually became a policeman, Jim Steele, didn't he?
I was just going to tell you the tale. We Jim Steele and Gary Hooligan and myself used to live fairly close together down Middleton Junction way in the early days. And at the end of season, the three of us plus Nicky Sinclair decided, and Roger Palmer decided to go out and ended up in this club in the middle of nowhere. And so me, Jim and Gary shared a taxi home. And we're dropping off Jim first. And the pair of them leap out and leg it. See you, youngie. Claim it on expenses. I had to pay for the taxi coming back from Manchester on my own.
Oh, dear.
Bear in mind, I was on about £7 a week at the time. I was really pleased with those two. But many years after Jim had left, I was sat in the stand at Tranmere with the policeman walking past, and he waved up at me, and he's pointing next to me. And when I looked, it was only his daughter, and we'd figured her when she was a baby on the front of the Chronicle with a picture of him holding her because he was big 6'4" lad, in safe hands, you know. And there she is, sat next to me, about 16 or so, looking a damn sight boddier than he was in his uniform anyway. But he was a good lad, Jimmy. Good lad. They always reckoned he was a little bit, Frizz used to reckon he was a bit too soft, but he was a good lad.
They had a good side, Bob. Frizz's team. I mean, is that the era of Maurice Whittle and people like that, and
Woody and
David Shaw was here around at the time, and you know they had quite a lot of people, a lot of Latics fans I know refer to that time as
Jim Pryor.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of Latics fans. I know we reminisce about our time, and that was before our time. Well, not before Bob's. I don't think anything was before your time, Bob, was it, to be honest with you? But anyway.
Can I run Nice. Can I run another name past you, Jack?
Yeah, go on.
Out of that era, we always had a cracking midfield player at Oldham, like Bobby Johnson. But this one came from Norwich, Tommy Bryceland.
Tommy Bryceland, yeah.
He finished up in Ireland, you know, as a chef in a top hotel, Tommy Bryceland.
Did he? Oh, well, I didn't know that. He wasn't as good as Bobby Johnson, by the way, but he scored a
he certainly wasn't. But he weren't bad.
No, I'm not saying he was a bad player, but I think, didn't they have, I mean, I'm going back in time now, and maybe I haven't got this right, but didn't he score a famous winning goal playing for Norwich City at Old Trafford in an FA Cup side, Tommy Bryceland?
I think he probably did.
So anything that, anybody who scores against them gets my vote, to be honest with you, Bob.
Well, they had a fabulous cup run, didn't they, Norwich?
Yeah, I think they did, yeah.
Yes, they did. Yeah. It was Tommy Bryceland.
Yeah, good player. Great.
I once had to pick my most favourite team. For Sean Jarvis, just before he left, he said, pick your team while you're there, because there was nobody else there to do it that day. And I actually had Bobby Johnson in midfield, John Sheridan to Cumbridge, because I had him on the bench.
Oh, right, of course, yeah, well, he would, yeah. I don't think he was better than Bobby, to be fair, God bless him. Yeah, no. John Sheridan himself, very, very good player. Different, yeah, absolutely. Oh, great player. Both, you know, for the teams he played for domestically and at international level as well. Not bad for us on one leg, was he? No, he wasn't. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just stood around the centre circle for about 90 minutes, but and I think it gave the players around him a lot of encouragement. And I know, good lad, John. Got a lot of time for Shez. And who gave away the penalty against Sheffield Wednesday?
I was just about to say, and yeah, absolutely. And what was interesting, I remember in the dressing room after that, right, I think Andy Barlow probably got 9.9 for artistic impression the way he went down. But I remember
he went down in instalments.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
The way he put it in the dressing room, and I can't use the exact phrase, it was something like, bloody hell, Pikey, I went down like a bloody sack of sponge.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and that's exactly what it sack of spuds, Andy Barlow. But you may remember, I'm reminiscing about this with Radio Manchester as well. I think Sheridan was involved at 2-1. Sheffield Wednesday should have gone 3-1 up, and John Holworth made an absolute worldie. And I'm pretty sure that it was off Shez.
Well, yep. I tell you, at the post, start of the second half, the centre forward called Hurst.
David
Hurst took it to 3-1. But just before we got the Barlow penalty, we should have had one when Viv Anderson ran across the goal area with the ball under his arm.
Yeah, well, that was more of a penalty. I think Vic Callow was the referee.
I think he's making amends. I think.
Absolutely, Bob. Absolutely. Yeah,
would have been. Yeah. They were always going to win that game, guys. It was never in doubt. He said.
No.
I think we're getting into the last 5 minutes of our 45 now.
Okay.
Unless one of our editors can tell me that I'm wrong. I think we started about 11:30. I think what it all boils down to, all of us, to do with Oldham Athletic in that time, have had an absolute belting time, and I'd never swap it for anything.
No,
that's true.
Well said. I've just got another quick memory. I should have mentioned this earlier on when we were reminiscing, but I also went on a pre-season tour with Latics. We went to Scandinavia and had a great night. Went to see Brian Adams live at the Oslo Spectrum. Still got a ticket somewhere. That was another never to be forgotten night. All the lads went. This was the time, Joe Royle, Willie Donachie was there. Andy Barlow, who you just mentioned, was there as well. Just had some great times as well. And I know you guys won't mind me mentioning this, but obviously, if you're not aware of this, let me just spill the beans. I ended up, remember, marrying one of the people who worked in administration at Oldham Athletic, Hillary.
A lovely lass.
You know what I mean? We got, known for years. Got married in 2000. She sadly passed away 2.5
God bless her.
God bless her. I've never had as much fun, and Joe will fondly remember, because she was called Hillary Horrocks before we got married. And I can picture him now in the corridor, that narrow corridor when you go in the official entrance at Latics, and he'd just holler, Horrocks! You know what I mean? I know Stuart knew Hillary well, as you did yourself, Bob, as well.
I did, yeah.
But so let me add this as well. Given that I was sleeping with one of the administrators at the time, there wasn't too much that I didn't know about.
The things you do for the job.
Absolutely.
Some of which,
A lovely lady, and I think it's very apt that as we come to the end of the podcast that we think of the people who all played such a huge part, who are no longer with us, like Hillary, like Big Gordon. I mean, sadly, like Stotty, who just recently he was the archetypal. He was simply Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. He was a little bit on the eccentric side. I'm sure he mind saying that, or maybe.
But he loved that. He played up to that.
But it was. Didn't he, Bob? I mean, just remind me. I mean, I don't know if this is sort of developed into a legendary story. A quick one about Stotty when this was in the early days, and he liked to save a penny. He wouldn't spend £1 if he could spend a tenner, Roy, would he? To be honest with you, you'd be subject to that. But there was a legendary tale. And I think that the game was Swindon Town away, and Joe wanted an overnight stay. And I think, look, I could be getting into the realms of legends here. It might be a bit of a tall tale. But the story I heard was, he said, it's not far, I can be at Swindon in just over 2 hours. So the story I heard was, he got in his bloody car from Bangor Park.
He got in his E-type Jag.
He drove to wherever it was. I think it was Swindon, and got back at 4:20 in the afternoon up on the same day, and said, "There you are.
You can do it in a day."
Been down to Swindon. I told you, you don't need an overnight stay to go to Swindon. But
absolutely
that kind of summarises Stotty. But a lovely, lovely man. And I remember him fondly. I really, really do. And ultimately, like I said, when we went to the Indian Ocean Games, which was hilarious with Jim Cass and that particular team, and Joe, and when Joe said, "Hey, come in," I said, "Can't afford it," and it's like I said, about £25 a month for about 18 years. I think I was paying that bill, but he was really good about it.
It'd be worth it.
And it,
Yeah,
know,
do you know what? Do you know what as well? Stotty with Stotty, Joe, in the end got the measure of him, and especially when it came to players.
Yeah,
we could go on for another 5 hours about the stories with Joe and Stotty and play. But I'll tell you what, 99% of the time, Joe got what he wanted.
Yeah, well, no, but it was not just Stotty at the time. It was a good board.
It was.
They had good people, and they were all, a lot of the people were very, very local as well, and they all chipped in. They all did a bit where it was necessary, and when you've got those sort of genuine people involved with the football club, you deserve a bit of success. I don't think anybody imagined it being as good as it was, and because Joe was the manager at the time, then he's got to get massive amount of credit. That's why I asked the question. I'm not too sure if they got enough credit for what they did, and it's absolutely impossible to do what happened then at that time. And just very briefly, I'm doing Bolton Wanderers, and they're a smashing club. Lots of similarities I see at Bolton. And when Sam came in, and Sam Allardyce, and football doesn't operate in that way now. They got all these players for nothing, paid them big wages, and they had great success. I do see real similarities in the two clubs, to be honest with you. And it's been a pleasure and a privilege to be part of it, but particularly for Latics, when I was just sort of effectively starting off in my full-time broadcasting career. It was just fantastic.
I'm so daft, I've still got a season ticket at Boundary Park.
Good for you, Bob. Yeah.
Is it a complimentary for all the work that you did?
No, you cheeky beggar, I pay for it.
As I said at the start, still the best 5 years of my career. I mean, all like the Wembleys and the heartache of losing to the semi-finals and the promotion. And, I think the part of Oldham was, what it was so great is that they lost to win. If you know what I mean, they lost to win, like losing the playoff semi-final when they were by far the best team in the division. They go to Wembley. Steve Sutton's save from Roger Palmer, like was a once-in-a-lifetime save to deny Oldham the equaliser. The heartache of Mark Hughes, bloody Mark Hughes.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, but the magic, just the magic of winning the title, of the Great Escape, that fantastic week. And so many stories, so many lovely people, and so many memories for a lifetime.
I just thought, because Stuart, you were reminiscing with Radio Manchester very recently about this, and I thought it just summarised the season. I'm going back. This is the day when they beat Sheffield Wednesday 3-2. They were losing 2-0. They came back. They won what was then the Division 2 title up into the First Division. And I think when I was listening to the programme, thought, and it's summarised, because that first game of the season, they won away 3-2 at Wolverhampton Wanderers. And
that's right.
Patrick. And I thought that just summarises, because I think you mentioned, Stuart, the attitude appeared to be, whoever we're playing, if the opposition score 3, we'll score 4. And they did have the players who could produce then. And I just thought that summarised the whole season. First game away at Wolves, never easy to go there. They win 3-2 with a march.
It set the tone. It set the tone for the year.
Absolutely, and the last game of the season, it seems somehow significant to end with a 3-2 win when they were losing 2-0. Fabulous memories.
But in the Premiership days, it carried on, of course. The famous the final day win over Southampton.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And kept them up. They won 3 in a week. The figures that season were amazing. They scored 50-odd goals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How many teams in the relegation zone do that these days? They scored 50-odd goals. Trouble is, they conceded about 70. But fabulous entertainment.
But Bob, just final point about one thing we haven't talked about is how special the ground was. And the Sheffield Wednesday game, the official crowd was 19.5. There was probably 29.5.
Atmosphere was brilliant.
Yeah, atmosphere was brilliant. The 3 best atmospheres for me ever at Boundary Park was that day. With the win over Sheffield Wednesday, the Wednesday night win over Liverpool in the Great Escape, which was amazing, and then the West Ham 6-0 Littlewoods Cup semi-final. I mean, you just couldn't touch that. It was just magical.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, Stuart. And I'd just like to make a point about everybody talked about the old plastic paradise, but they won a lot of games away from home, which wasn't on the Plastic Paradise in those years. And I think that was slightly unfair. I think Neil Redfearn, when you were reminiscing on Radio Manchester last week, Stuart, he summed it up. He said, if he could play, it was fantastic to play on a true surface. And you get found out if you couldn't control it quickly, or your mind didn't work quickly enough. Because a lot of people put some of the success, if not, some people might have put the success all down to the plastic pitch. That was wrong, and it was unfair. They could play. They could play on grass. They took advantage of it, no question about that.
Yeah, two small midfield men.
Yeah, they took advantage of it, and you can't blame anybody for that. But it wasn't all about, you know, the Plastic Paradise. They had players who could play. And everything just came together for those several seasons. Everything just gelled, and it's never been the same, quite frankly.
He used to scratch his head, Joe, at Liverpool and Tottenham, saying, we don't like plastic pitches. He said, if they had one, we won't get ball off them.
No, you'd never get the ball away. Nice to speak to you guys.
Thanks very much, lads.
Yeah, lovely.
Hope to see you when the season starts again.